So, I'll touch on the reproduction side of things. So, we've had the fertility breeding value for 14 years now, effectively. That was in response to obviously that fertility dropping down, certainly the Holsteinisation coming in and providing some faults, but providing some production benefits. Yep. So just recently, in the last 3 years, we actually established two lines, two groups of animals with high and low fertility. Yep. So they had a 10% difference in their fertility breeding value. So that means a 10% difference in 6-week and calf rates. Yep. So some of the key findings there that we'd expect, obviously, is again a 10% difference in 6-week and calf rate. But the first thing that we found with those relates to Donnagh's point is, on average, they reached puberty 21 days earlier. So the whole reproductive area had been accelerated, and they were really getting into that reproductive cycle earlier. We then went further down the track and we expected that 10%. We actually found a 40% difference in the fertility of those animals in their first, basically their first lactation. 40% of these low animals were empty. So these were -5%. So they were animals, they were bulls and cows that generally wouldn't see the light of day, but certainly you see that big difference between the groups. So as part of that also we looked at, okay, so at the moment you select a bull which has say +5%. You'd expect that if you had all the daughters in that herd relative, you get another 5% in your 6-week in calf rate. We actually found that you get about 150% of that value in there. So really that there's a bit of a dampening of that genetic merit and that comes through. So what we see as the key parts of that reproduction is, if we're wanting to, because it's still a fundamental part of your system, reproduction, fertility. Yeah. We want to get a better breeding value, and there's ways to do that. It is get those predictor traits at puberty, because that's early, we can get that in there, and then the quality of the data, and also the parentage side of things as well. Because 30% of animals in the country are misidentified. There's a range of herds which have 1 or 2% misidentification up to 90%. And what we find with that is you get a progeny test estimate which is based on DNA verified animals, and then they drop down because of all that washing or dirty data that's coming in and up dilutes it. Yeah. So we wanted to get a more precise fertility breeding value to really accelerate those animals and get improvements in that side of things. In terms of the health and well-being, as Donagh said, really there's aspects of economics in that, but there's also societal expectations around that. They don't want to see animals ill. You've got things like antibiotics. It's going to be a point of time where that is not going to be routine there, or you'll be very controlled. So we've got to find naturally resilient animals that have got an inherent healthiness about them, so they don't get sick, you don't have to treat them and all the cost in that.
But Jeremy, hold on now, because we know that only around 3% of health and fertility is actually genetic. So they talk about this heritability statistics, the vets will say, or the nutritionists will say, it's only 3% heritable. Sure, why would you bother with breeding for that?
That's right, and hopefully there's no nutritionists or vets in here, but in terms of anything that we can select from, if it's got 3% heritability, that's fine. If it's got 1%, we can still make gains, because as long as there's genetic variation for it. So for fertility, for any of these, as long as we can identify those animals that are genetically better, you can make gains in that. Yeah. So anyone that comes out with this heritability argument is completely flawed. Yes, you solve things with a combination of management and genetics, but certainly you've got that inherent underlying.
What's the heritability of fertility then?
So fertility struggles to get to 2 to 3%. But we see that when we select those animals which have a 10% difference, we've found a huge difference, so that clearly shows that the fertility breeding value is, we can still select on it, that's not poor, even though I said about that data quality. So yeah, there's always gains that you can make in genetic, and obviously we're biased because we're geneticists, but it's true. So yeah.
So while you're excusing yourself as being geneticist, I'll bring the farmer piece back to it just for a moment. Can I just touch on, I don't want us to get too deep in it right at the moment, but it'll help us out when we get to the health and wellbeing traits as well, is this quality of data. How much data do we need? And I guess if we concentrate on that fertility one for a bit, what we have seen in the last, a number of changes in the space in the last 3 to 5 years in the country. Like I talk to a lot of farmers that say, Malcolm, help me do something about this 18% empty rate I've got. But when you break it down, they were inducing 9% and they used to have 9% empty rate. You put the two together, it's 18. Now I'm not dismissing it as being as simple as that, but the fact is things have changed a little amount, a good deal in the last little period of time. But that said, what we are finding as well is, I'll add something else that's changed a fair bit, is a significant use of intervention. And all this data, Jeremy, is flowing into the evaluation of the, and it's a massive impact, isn't it? Would you comment on that?
That's right. So we've been delving into the data that you record on your farms and looking at individual herd level, the quality of the recording. So first...
Can I just ask a question here? When you take data from a farm, is it DNA proven that you know that the data you're being given, or is it sort of crap?
Excellent point. So I'll repeat the question. So the question is, do we know, the data we're using, is it DNA proven and the likes? And so, Jeremy, if you don't mind, as we have in the others, I'll just briefly give the difference between that first and second proof. I made the comment in the last couple of sessions, the true champions here over the last 50 years have been our site-proven farmers. We've got a lot to thank them for. And more recently, we're able to make sure that those farmers have the discipline of all the technology we have. So in other words, when a bull comes through and has, on his first proof through a site-proving scheme, he has 70 daughters proven in 55 herds. We try and get the spread from Northland to Southland and system 1 through 5. Good quality stuff, right? Then he goes out on Premier Size or from whatever organisation, irrelevant to this conversation, and ends up with a significant number of daughters coming from the commercial herd. And then that information, like these bulls could end up with an additional 20 or 30,000 daughters. Let's use a high-use bull who's got 30,000 daughters. Problem is, 9,000 of them aren't his. And so the question I would ask, Jeremy, is it time for verified data only? How much data do we need?
So we've been exploring that around using only DNA verified data. So if you had said 6 years ago, we didn't have enough DNA verified to get an accurate evaluation. Obviously we had it on the progeny test scheme, but now we're, I think, at a point where there's enough. You've got 20% of the herds and doing it there. The reality is we have, say, 10,000 herds, a bit more. You probably only need 1,000 of those herds that are doing, and there's a key thing here, DNA verification and quality data. So even if you have DNA verification, if you don't have quality data, you've got the mishmash there. So we really need that coming through, and that's what we've been looking at. So, and related to that point around where Malcolm said the drop in the breeding value, we have found that 50% of that drop is due to the parentage misidentification. Because what you have is you have a bull who's up here, drops down, and he's now getting assigned daughters from an inferior bull, so they naturally come back to the pack. So we're looking at potentially doing that, evaluations where we run the DNA verified, and really in those herds that are doing very well in recording, potentially, and I think this is something, a conversation that we need to have soon, is around incentivising those farmers that are recording the data quality very well.